It's happening. Prince Andrew will most likely be stripped of his titles by Parliament. And make no mistake, that is the future for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle as well. And it's well deserved on all sides. Both the Yorks and the Sussexes have done a lot of damage to the monarchy, but in very different ways. And it's time for the monarchy to wrest back a little bit of power here, a little bit of control, to be able to enact discipline against members of the institution. Because unfortunately, not everybody has the monarchy's best interests at heart. Sometimes they're just in it for themselves. And we've definitely seen the reverberations and the impact that can have between the Yorks and the cosplay royals. And unfortunately, because the royal family has not acted, we're in a quagmire right now. So I'm going to get into all this with you. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. I do provide compelling royal commentary. So please hit that subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you back. And we also have a relationship with Ana Lucia Diamonds. And I have this absolutely gorgeous diamond ring here. It's called the Spirit Ring, and it's just lovely, and it's kind of dainty and fun. And so, guys, if you are interested in checking any of this out, actually retails for $2.99, but if you use code ROYAL20, which applies to all the pieces on the site, you do save 20%. They are lab created diamonds, amazing quality, and allows you to get some gorgeous jewelry pieces for a great price. I have a lot of them I'm wearing here as well. My bracelet, one of my rings, and then my earrings here, guys, all from Ana Lucia, and my necklace, my cross necklace. So if you guys are interested in that, if you're thinking of pieces for the holidays for friends or family, feel free to check out Ana Lucia. And again, if you use code ROYAL20, you shall save 20%. Now, things are getting dicey, you could say, for rogue members of the British royal family, and they have it coming. Both sides have it coming here. But like I said in the intro, there's some problems as well. And one of the things I want to highlight to you guys, if you haven't watched it, is the Crown Report, which this week I went sort of over a lot of the stories regarding Andrew in Royal Lodge and various things, and his Chinese spy connections and all these sorts of things that people are really, really talking about right now, and why it's continuing to build to strip Andrew of his titles. Because this has really started off, I feel like, kicked off with Andrew Lowney back there in August when his book entitled was released, revealing again more problems for Andrew and Sarah. And their connections, of course, to Jeffrey Epstein have come up again and again and again. But I also feel like in the kind of rush to blame pretty much everything on Epstein and to utilize Epstein to kick out the Yorks from the royal family, they're sort of missing, you could say, a bigger issue brewing, which was Andrew using his royal connections to enrich himself rather than representing the UK government. Because that is honestly the bigger problem, but it's been lost in this mess. But definitely there is a growing trend and a strong support for stripping Andrew of his titles. We see this in the latest YouGov poll here. So this was taken just yesterday. Would you support or oppose Prince Andrew, Duke of York, being stripped of his dukedom? As a reminder, Andrew gave up using the title Duke of York, but he technically still holds it. And so the support column here between strongly and somewhat is 80%. Oppose is only 6%, and don't know is 14%. Now, if you compare that to, I think this was earlier this year, so just in August, we've definitely seen the support column tick up by at least, I would argue, 5 to 13 points, because some of the people who are in the support column here and don't know here make up that 80%. So looks like he's moved the support in a stronger direction. Don't know has dwindled a little bit, but only by about 6 points. And then oppose, that column has been sliced in half. So there really, really is a lot of support for stripping Andrew's titles. And if you look at the party lines here, it becomes apparent as well that conservatives do really oppose this, while Labor opposes this much less. And there is now movement within Parliament to strip Andrew of his titles. So this is the removal of titles. Rachel Maskell, who says bill to give the monarch powers to remove titles to provide that such removals can be done by the monarch on their own initiative following a recommendation of a joint committee of parliament or at the request of the person who holds the title and for connected purposes. So definitely very much this is carte blanche to if they can get a joint committee of parliament to recommend it as well. A monarch can fairly easily strip somebody of their titles. This is, in a lot of ways, a good thing. I like that it sort of streamlines the process because what we have right now is sort of a complicated process where nobody totally gets it, to be honest. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I don't know if anybody really gets it, but it does require an act of parliament, usually in regards to a traitor status, to strip somebody of their titles. And it should be something that's, I don't want to say easy to do because you don't want somebody to abuse it, but sort of somewhat easy if somebody steps out of line, that you have a way to discipline them. Because the situation with Andrew and Sarah and Harry and Meghan is very much the same. Their, you could say, quote unquote, crimes are different in a lot of ways, but both sides have done a lot of damage to the British monarchy through their various actions. Andrew, through mostly his past, it's not a present, not a future as much. All of this is relegated to things he's done in the past 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years old. So Andrew here has done a lot of bad things, and these bad things have resulted in irreparable harm to the monarchy. And they come up again and again and again. More is dug up again and again and again. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for Andrew here because he's made a lot of catastrophically bad decisions. And I think, honestly, he should do and be the big boy here and fall on his sword and voluntarily give up his titles. Of course, he might be worried about how that impacts his daughters because I think, in my personal opinion, they should be able to keep their princess titles. But obviously, you have to be able to discipline somebody. And royals are able to get away with a lot because there is no recourse for enacting a discipline or a punishment, you could say, on somebody who steps out of line. And this is also why Meghan Markle was an alleged bully to her staff. And it was in one of the emails where Jason Knaft goes, there's just, or it was either Jason Knaft or Simon Case, you just sort of went, there's no way to really hold a principal to account. There was no recourse for anyone to actually discipline Meghan Markle for abusing her staff, allegedly. And that is something that needs to happen. That needs to be a way for the monarchy to address bad behavior, bad acts, bad things done in bad faith. They need to be a way, they need to have a way to address that within the family. And that definitely should apply to the Yorks and Harry and Meghan. But there's also some complications behind here too. And it's something that's, I think, really important to discuss because one of the issues I've found most problematic when it comes to the calls for Andrew to be stripped of everything is that it's a way to enact justice. It's a way to get justice for Virginia Giuffre, basically. And I find that to be really problematic because if you can't get somebody through the legal system, through a court of law to hold them account, I don't think it's right either to make and address them in different ways and punish them in different ways because you couldn't get them that way. I just find that to be a bit kind of harmful to the overall system because when it comes to this issue, which I think it's good to have a way for a monarch to more readily and easily remove a title, is that this must be done not in reaction, not to, let's say, punish in the negative sense. Because when I say discipline, yes, punishment is part of discipline, but that's how you sort of, raise better children is that you punish them for doing something wrong. So they learn, so they make better decisions in the future. Same thing applies here. But that this pursuit of justice I feel like twists something that could be very positive into something a little bit negative. Because the reason somebody's titles should be stripped is that there is some sort of royal code of conduct that exists that is transparent between the government and the royal household. And that if you are a person who marries into the royal family, if you are a person who is born into the royal family, when you come of age, when you start to be a working royal, you're given this code of conduct and you sign on the dotted line that say, I agree to do X, Y, and Z. And if you at some point are tempted, because the reality of the royal fold is that you are tempted to want more, if that's the route you decide to pursue and you bring the entire institution into disrepute, there will be a punishment for that. One that you are aware of because it is written down and you have signed on the dotted line. Because I don't like this idea that it's reactionary. That's a way to enact punishment because there's not enough evidence in a court of law. We should not be stripping Andrew of his title because of whatever happened with Virginia Giuffre, which we can't even prove. It's her word against his. She is now dead. So is Jeffrey Epstein. Unless there is some videotape proof, whatever, there's just not really a lot to go on there. And there's not even a good focus on his alleged financial crimes. It's all for this Epstein things. It's like, well, we need to actually search his finances, how he got money, how he used his role as a special trade envoy for the UK to wheel and deal behind the scenes to make money for himself, his wife, and his kids. That is actually the bigger problem here. But because of Epstein, everything's been wrapped up in that. And so I feel like this route is more about punishing that than it is about addressing somebody who abused their royal position to enrich themselves, to try to get away with crimes. Now, that could definitely apply to Andrew as well. And so this really needs to be something that's comprehensively thought through and that the palace needs to really think through because unfortunately here, the palace has not handled the issue. And because of that, the government is now stepping in and doing the thing Charles should have done. And that's not helpful either. Charles should have been able to, in his sort of role, figure out how to deal with his two biggest problems, which are his brother and his son. Those are his two biggest problems. And the monarchy has this very annoying, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, approach of burying its head in the sand, going, oh, it's just going to go away. It's just going to go away. We'll have our dignified silence and it's just going to go away. Well, it's proven that with Andrew, that somewhat worked, but also didn't really work. And then we have the Harry and Meghan, where it's really not working. It's not working, Charles. And Charles has to be the one who makes these decisive moves because he has not been, I think, proactive in the situation. The government has been pushed to the point of being reactive against Charles and his moves here. And that's on Charles for not managing things better. And in particular, not managing his son. Because one of the things we talked about on the Crown Report yesterday, which I want to bring up here again because it's very critically important, which is that Harry and Meghan are following a very similar road to Andrew and Sarah. They're following a very similar pathway. And so it's actually really stinking important for the royal family to recognize that when you have rogue royals, yes, maybe they're not doing something necessarily, let's say, massively bad right now. They're sort of okay. They're sort of manageable. They're a pain in the butt, but it's okay. But you will get to the point of a hairy situation in 30 years that might be very much like Andrew, which should have been nipped in the bud years ago. But it was allowed to fester because nobody stinking addressed it. And now we're here. And now everything's sort of spinning wildly out of control. And Charles looks like a weak king. He looks like a very weak king here because he didn't get his brother to do enough. And he didn't enact and sort of set the bar from the beginning about how he would deal with Andrew and his son. because the actual monarchy's biggest problem is not Andrew. Andrew is a huge, huge Achilles heel for them. But the benefit of Andrew compared to Harry and Meghan is that Andrew's sins are mostly in the past. Most of the stuff people are digging up happened 10 to 20 years ago. Doesn't excuse his behavior at all. And if there is enough evidence for a crime, prosecute the guy. Prosecute the heck out of him. 150%. But he has tried to, in various ways, live in sort of a dignified silence. But Harry and Meghan are very different. Harry and Meghan are on TV all the time. They're on social media all the time. Harry and Meghan today just signed a pledge thing against super intelligent AI. Think in part because AI will be smarter than the two of them because the two of them have no creative brain cells. And so they are struggling in their industry. And so they signed on to this petition thing as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They held events at Mental Health Week as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Meghan is the Duchess of Sussex on As Ever, on With Love, on their Netflix deals, podcasts, all these sorts of things. Harry and Meghan are going to be the Achilles heel in Charles's side and then in William's side for the rest of their life. And the reason is that Meghan Markle is obsessed with the media spotlight, and she is absolutely obsessed with trying to get her face in our face as much as humanly possible, and she will never ever stop. You can never ever believe that Meghan and Harry will do the right thing ever. They will never do the right thing. You have to be the one, in this case, Charles. He has to be the one who does the right thing here. He has to be the one that stops them because they will never stop themselves. It has to be the British monarchy that addresses this. If not, it will end in disaster. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee 150,000% that this whole scenario will end in disaster for the British monarchy if they don't figure out what to do about Harry and Meghan. And this move in Parliament will make it much easier to address the Harry and Meghan issue. And it should be addressed. And Charles should be more concerned about it, I think, than he is in a lot of ways. Because Charles, and I will say I have a lot of sympathy for him here, wants to have a relationship with his son before he dies. He wants to rebuild that connection with his grandchildren. But I think Charles just has to accept that his son and his wife are very, very cruel people. They're sort of horrible people. And they will lord over him something Charles cannot control, which is Harry's security, preventing him from allegedly bringing his kids back to the UK. And because of that, Charles has been prevented from doing so many things with his grandchildren because Harry and Meghan have decided that they're going to pursue their own interests above the interests of the crown, which is, again, is the reason why the titles need to be stripped. When it comes to Prince Andrew stripping the titles, it should be done because he used his position as a royal to financially enrich himself when he was tasked with helping the UK. He also dealt with very many nefarious people. It is not just Jeffrey Epstein, it is other people. And the alleged crimes in regards to Virginia Giuffre, that actually shouldn't be a reason Andrew is stripped of his titles. It shows clear moral lapses in judgment, 150%. But I think the question of criminality very much exists there. But there should be codes of conduct against, again, using your royal title to enrich yourself when you should be representing the British people and dealing with nefarious people. And we have a similar situation with Harry and Meghan. They have decided to enrich themselves at the expense of pretty much everybody else. And that should be dealt with, I think, rather severely. They have used and abused their royal titles in ways they should not. And they deserve, as much as Andrew, to have their titles stripped and the places in the line of succession. I honestly believe this should go much further. Places in the line of succession should be removed, especially for Harry and Meghan. They're too close to the throne. And if actually something happens to them, Andrew and his lot are next up. And I don't have an issue with the girls, but there should be a way to tell a royal if you are acting out of line, if you are allegedly abusing your staff members, if you're doing this, if you're doing that, you will have punishment for that. Because the reason Andrew, Sarah, Harry, and Meghan have behaved in the way they can is that they believe they are untouchable because the system has created a situation where it seems like they are untouchable, that their titles are untouchable, that their places in the line of succession are untouchable. And I think, and again, this should be done rationally, not angrily in reaction. Tell them that no, that's not the case. You are not the king and queen here. Charles is. Parliament is. And if you're not interested in representing the British people above yourselves, that's fine. You can make that decision. But there will be consequences to that because all of this stuff together is self inflicted wounds. Andrew did not have to continue his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein after everything came out and Jeffrey Epstein was charged and convicted. He decided to do that. Harry and Meghan did not have to go on Oprah Winfrey and trash his family. Again, I would argue, this is just my personal opinion here, is that when it comes to Harry and Meghan being stripped of their titles, again, I don't know necessarily if going on Oprah Winfrey is the reason why they should be stripped of their titles. It shouldn't be something done in anger. It should be going, okay, these two people are using their titles in commercial endeavors to enrich themselves, thereby damaging the brand of the monarchy. That should be why, number one, why their titles are stripped. Number two, they have decided to act in an indiscreet manner. And as a result of that, our mystique and our brand are damaged. And so, in order to prevent further damage and further harm, we have to make X, Y, and Z decision. This should be fairly easy, but I feel like it's become sort of a very reactionary, angry message to the royals over Andrew, and they're dealing with him. And unfortunately, Queen Elizabeth wasn't alive to see this, but this is her mess, to be honest. This is the mess she left Charles. And Charles hasn't stepped up to clean it up yet. He's sort of dragging his feet. And I understand that previously the monarchy could have and play the long game. And there's some instances where they can still do that, but not in this. Not in this. You need to act decisively. You need to have a plan in place. You need to make it so that you're in charge of the messaging. This is one of the things I've said a lot about the British monarchy and their PR. They need to be in charge of the messaging. Don't let somebody else be in charge of it. You are. Don't be reactionary, be proactive. We've seen the monarchy drag their feet too often. I feel like we're constantly, they just hope things just magically resolve on their own, but they're not. Charles has to make the tough decisions here. And I think Parliament is taking the strong first step, and it must be extended to Harry and Meghan as well. And I think it will be. I think it will be. They've done too much damage to avoid them. And if Charles doesn't do it, if that act is in place, I bet you William will do it. That'll be one of the first things he does. And I think William is really pushing for this because he understands the monarchy's reputation and how it's dealt with Andrew and Sarah and Harry and Meghan has damaged it. And the only way to fix it is to get rid of the problems. And I think that is what's happening, and that is what should be happening. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you again very soon. Bye.